Thibaudeau, and I'm here with one of the best strength coaches in the business. I think he's the best, but he's not going to refer to himself that way. Christian Thibaudeau. I've known you since 2002, and we taught a course together in Portland, Oregon in 2003. And that feels, I mean, it is a long time ago, and it feels like a long time ago. That was very early in both of our careers.
Absolutely, man. And that's actually when I learned that I need to get better at speaking English if I want to keep up with a guy like you. He's like naturally gifted for teaching people.
Yeah, it helps when you only have one language to learn growing up.
It helps. It helps.
A little bit faster. Yeah. But hey, man, I wanted to ask you a bunch of different training questions that I'm curious about, but also a lot of people have asked me about. Number one is, how do you balance strength training goals with conditioning goals? So people that are trying to improve endurance and at the same time also trying to improve strength training. Do you think both can be you can progress in both at the same time?
You absolutely can. I mean, the best example would be CrossFit competitors, right? I mean, if you had asked me that same question like 15 years ago, I would have told you that it was very hard to do so because you had basically no real life examples of that. Like maybe some hockey players would do conditioning work preparing for the season, football players, but nobody would really push the limit of both strength and conditioning at the same time. And then I started working with CrossFit athletes, and I saw that it's possible. So I started researching, well, what's the best way to do that, right? And another thing that I changed my view on, and that makes it possible and even likely that you improve both at the same time, is you don't actually need to lift as often as some people preach to get stronger and bigger. Like for example, because I'm a second kid, a few months ago, like a month ago, my own training, it's basically like 2 lifting workouts per week and a third workout where I do explosive stuff. So it's jumping, it's throwing, it's snatches, stuff like that. And it's a very short workout. It could, like in the summer, it will be sprints. It will be some conditioning work, farmer's walk. But with those 2 strength workouts, my strength is going through the roof. My body weight has climbed quite a bit. In fact, I'm progressing more over the past month and a half than I have been progressing for at least 6 years. I'm recovering a lot better. So that's the first thing, right? I mean, people assume that if you want to get strong as shit, you need to lift 4 or 5 days a week. That's just not the case. I mean, if you plan properly, you can absolutely get stronger and bigger with 2 good weekly workouts, okay? And when you understand that, it actually opens up the door quite a bit, because now you have 5 more days where you can put stuff in, and because of that, you have lots of room to put your workouts in the week. Then you will not have any interference. Because the main issue with trying to bring up both conditioning and strength and size is that there's what we call interference between the signals, the adaptation signals. When you do a training session, you are actually telling your body that you want it to become a certain way. So if I'm lifting for strength, you're telling your body you need to get stronger. And I strongly believe that you need to send the most unambiguous signal as possible in a single training session. I believe that trying to combine many elements in one workout will always lead to suboptimal progression in both or 3 signals you're doing. So that's why if you're lifting 4 days a week, for example, you don't have a choice but to put the conditioning work on those workout days. Otherwise, you never rest during the week, and that's a recipe for disaster. And by having 2 different signals, sometimes signals that are actually opposite, right? If when you're lifting for strength, it's a completely opposite signal as training for conditioning or endurance. It's not the same energy system. You're actually training for maximizing efficiency versus energy efficiency. It doesn't work well together. So if you do both at the same time, you will get mixed results. I mean, and science is pretty clear on that. However, if you understand that, you don't need to be a gym addict, get stronger and bigger, then lift 2 days a week or lift 3 days a week, like twice for strength and size, once for power and speed, and then you can put conditioning work once or twice in there and you will be able to recover because there will be no it's really not even a recovery issue. I mean, if you're in good shape, Doing interval work, for example, for let's say 12 minutes, 12-ish minutes, it's not going to drain you. I mean, you can recover from that, like from an energy perspective. You're not causing muscle damage. The only recovery issue would be down-regulating the beta-adrenergic receptors, which I will come back in a second, because that's the real key. What we call overtraining is just basically your receptors stopping responding to your own adrenaline. So you lose strength, you lose speed, you lose endurance, you lose motivation. That's what we call overtraining. It's really just a training burnout from producing too much adrenaline too often, right? But the real issue is, if you want to progress optimally in 1, 2, 3, 4 different things, you can't train them at the same time. Doesn't mean you can't train them in the same phase. It means you can't train them on the same occasion, the same training event. So what I see is, you know what? Do lifting twice a week, do conditioning twice a week, and do speed once a week. To me, that's the ideal, just for someone who wants to be in great shape and be able to do absolutely everything, right? So that's perfectly doable. Now, the way you program your lifting, in my opinion, and I think you will agree with this, is you want to use more of a minimalist approach. The reason is simple, right? Because let's say that you want to do strength work 2 or 3 times a week, then you have to do conditioning work on the days in between, or on other days. If you do so much training volume or so many different exercises in the session that you have what we call CNS fatigue, which doesn't exist, I'm going to explain what it is, but then you actually won't be able to do the conditioning sessions properly. The lifting workout should actually energize you, okay? That's the key. Now, I'm going to go slightly off topic, but I think it's going to be somewhat interesting and probably will help us answer the question. It is the matter of overtraining, what we call overtraining. And that's the one thing we absolutely want to avoid. And that's the main difference between those who lift just to get big for looking good at clubs and those who actually need to performing on the sport field, or just performing in everyday life, just being a better overall athlete. Now, an athlete doesn't need to compete in a sport to be an athlete. You just need to perform with your body. The main difference is, if you're just bodybuilding to build muscle, it doesn't really matter if you feel like complete shit when you walk into the gym. You just do a biceps, triceps workout for pump, and that's fine. But if you're an athlete and you have a speed session to do, last thing you want is feeling like crap. If you have a very hard conditioning session, you need to be motivated to do it. And if you train, it's impossible. So that's why you really need to manage what we call CNS fatigue, okay? And here's how it works. The body produces cortisol, as you know, right? And cortisol is, if you're training hard, if you want to improve your body and your performance, it's the most important hormone to understand and control, okay? It can completely mess you up, but you need it to perform. Right. Why do you need it to perform? Because cortisol is actually what's responsible for increasing adrenaline, okay? When you're facing a stressful situation, a potential danger, I'm fighting a tiger, running away from a tiger, or just doing a kick-ass workout, what happens is, first, you need to recognize if the situation is a real danger or not, okay? And you use noradrenaline to do that. So the brain will release noradrenaline, which increases focus and your capacity to discern if the danger is real or not. If in a matter of milliseconds, your brain, your nervous system decides that, you know what, it is a real danger, well, the response is to release cortisol, okay? And the role of cortisol, it's not to eat away your muscle. The role of cortisol is to make sure that every system in your body is tuned in a way that you can face any danger. You can fight a tiger, you can run away from a tiger. So in order to do that, cortisol will first take the noradrenaline and convert it to adrenaline. Cortisol facilitates that conversion, okay? So cortisol actually increases adrenaline. Like you know how Charles Poliquin used to say that cortisol spikes just before you wake up, and it's cortisol that wakes you up. He was partially correct. It's not the cortisol that wakes you up. It's the fact that cortisol spikes like 5-10 minutes before you wake up, which spikes adrenaline, and it's the adrenaline that wakes you up. Anyway, so first thing that cortisol does, it increases adrenaline, which increases motivation because you have adrenergic receptors in your brain. Motivation, drive, aggressiveness, competitiveness. That's all like self-esteem, self-confidence, the will to work harder and to suffer. That's coming from activating the adrenergic receptors in your brain. You have them in your heart. So it increases heart rate. It makes the heart contract harder, increasing endurance and capacity to do work. It binds to the muscle, which makes them stronger, faster, more coordinated. So you increase performance. However, and cortisol also mobilizes stored energy to make sure you don't run out of fuel. Okay, so that's why a low carbs diet or a caloric deficit will always lead to higher cortisol levels.
Oh yeah.
Like the best way to lower cortisol when it's too high is to ingest carbs, because one of the functions of cortisol is to mobilize stored glycogen to increase blood sugar when it's too low. Anyway, to get back to the overtraining thing. Now, adrenaline is released when you have a higher cortisol level, and adrenaline binds to the receptors. The problem is that the beta adrenergic receptors, the receptors interacting with adrenaline, are the receptors in your body that desensitize the fastest. Okay, it's to protect you against a thing called dying. Okay, if you overload the androgen receptors, I mean, you're not going to die. I mean, you have bodybuilders who could inject a whole bottle of testosterone. They would not have a heart attack right there. I mean, it takes months and months and months of abuse to have side effects from overloading the androgen receptors. Even if you have like one crazy high carbs meal, you won't turn diabetic in one meal. It takes abuse over time. But if you overload the beta adrenergic receptors, you could actually have a heart attack right there. And it has happened. People who drink too many energy drinks, go play ice hockey and die on the ice.
Oh yeah.
So in order to protect yourself against overstimulation of those receptors, the beta adrenergic receptors downregulate super easily. The moment you overstimulate them, you can desensitize them in one day. And we all had that like kick-ass workout where we train like an animal for hours, like beating PRs left and right and doing a crazy amount of volume, and the next day we want to kill ourselves. and that's because you basically burned out your adrenal receptors, and now you stop responding to your own adrenaline. So it's impossible to get up. You feel depressed, no motivation, muscle tone goes down because adrenaline increases muscle tone. But that can happen if you train too much. So to get back to my initial point about you can't do too much lifting work if you are to do conditioning work the next day or speed work the next day, is because if you do too much work the next day, you will feel like shit and you won't be able to work. So you need to really manage that. And really, although there are several variables involved in releasing adrenaline, here are the 6 main ones. Okay, they are. So that's relating to every type of training sessions. That could be conditioning, could be lifting, but let's talk about lifting first. So the 3 main things that will increase cortisol and adrenaline in a workout are volume, intensiveness, and psychological stress. These are the 3 main ones. And they're relating mostly to how much sets you're doing, how many sets you're doing. That's volume. Intensiveness is how hard you're pushing your sets. Are you going to failure, stopping short of failure, whatever, going past failure? The closer you get to failure, the more adrenaline you get because the body senses, you know what, I might die on that next rep. So I'll send some NOS in the engine to get a bit more RPM, right? And the third one is psychological stress. I mean, you have 500 pounds on the bar for squats. You have never lifted that before. You get a little bit nervous. You get a little bit anxious. You pace back and forth. You crank yourself up. You slap yourself in the face. Boom, you do it, and it's easy. Why? Because the adrenaline increased before the workout. And that can actually be true for conditioning sessions as well. I mean, I remember when I was dumb enough to do CrossFit, I mean, the things you do to save your marriage, right? Anyway, so I would be going, and that's the first time and the last time I'm going to say this, okay? I was going to the box to do a WOD, all right? And I would be sweating in the car, heart rate racing, and like hot like crazy. Like because cortisol was high because of the anticipation of suffering.
Yeah, right.
If you know it's going to suck and it's going to hurt, you will get a cortisol response, an adrenaline response, okay? So that's the third thing. So being intimidated by a task, going close to failure, and doing volume, the three main things that will spike adrenaline. So that's why personally, I believe you should never emphasize more than one in a workout. You can't do high volume and push to failure. You can't use high volume and use stressful work, okay? That's the three main things. But there are also other variables that will increase cortisol. And when you want to minimize the chance of overtraining, you want to decrease them as much as possible. The fourth one, which is also very significant, is neurological demands. The more the brain needs to work when it does an exercise or a session, the more adrenaline you need to speed your neurons to be able to do those tasks, okay? So the more, okay, just take a biceps curl. You could do a biceps curl while sleeping or sleepwalking. It's a no-brainer. There's pretty much no brain activity involved. That's why bodybuilders can do them, right? Now, if you look at a squat, much more complex, much more technique involved. You look at a snatch, even more, okay? So the more complex an exercise is, the more brain you need, the more adrenaline you need, the more cortisol you need to amp your brain up. But I'll go one step further. The better you are at an exercise, the more automatic it is, the less brain power you need to do it. That's why Olympic lifters who've been competing or training with the Olympic lifts for 15 years, for them a snatch is no more stressful than a biceps curl because they've been doing it for so long, it's automatic. And that's where people fail to see the value of sticking to the same basic exercises and making them as automatic as possible. Because the more efficient you are to an exercise, the better you are to movement, the less stress on the nervous system there is. When I work with high-level athletes, except for the first 4 weeks of training, we use essentially no exercise variation. On the big lifts, I found the one variation of the squat, for example, that works the best for that athlete, and we stick with it for the whole preparation. Sometimes I might use a little bit of variation if we have lots of time off or to fix a weak point, but normally we stick with the same movement. Same thing with the Olympic lifts. I only use one variation of the Olympic lifts with the athletes I'm working with. Could be a snatch, could be a clean, could be from the hang, from the floor, from blocks. I don't care. We pick one variation and we stick with it so that they become really efficient at it, so there's very little stress. Now, I do believe in the value of variation, but for me, variation will come from various training methods, like changing the rep speed, including isometrics, including emphasizing the eccentric, shortening the range of motion, for example, or changing the range of motion. But I stick with the same movements. And even the closer you get to the season, the less variation you should have in a number of exercises in the program. Because the more different tasks you have in a session, the more your brain needs to work. So if I have to do 2 exercises in the workout, very little brain power involved because I only have 2 different tasks. If I have 8 different movements, especially if they are multi-joint, the brain needs to work a lot harder. And you know what? It's even more demanding if you combine those movements, A1, A2, circuit training, CrossFit WOD, because now you're going from one task and immediately you need to change your programming. The brain works over time. Okay. And it's funny because Charles Poliquin, super smart guy, obviously, he brought many of the most effective training concepts to life, but oftentimes he didn't really understand why they work. He just knew they worked and he would make up a theory. For example, A1, A2 combining antagonistic pairing. He said, well, it works because it's a neurological phenomenon. Well, no shit. Everything is a neurological phenomenon. But the reason why it worked is because what I just mentioned. When you're switching from one task to the other, the body needs to produce more adrenaline to amp the brain up to be able to switch from one to the other. Now you get a higher adrenaline level, so you perform better. But that comes at a cost because more adrenaline, more risk of down-regulating the receptors. And you don't want that. So I believe in finding the best exercise in a basic movement pattern and sticking with them, okay? The exception would be if an athlete needs to fix a weak point or wants more of a bodybuilder physique. I'm gonna throw in some isolation work in there, but never on the same days as the big lift. I use what I call a gap workout. So when I work with elite athletes, the setup I use is 3 whole body workouts per week. And it's only the big lift, normally 3 lifts per workout, sometimes 4, depending on the recovery capacity. Some will only use 2. Like I had a bobsleigh guy who could only do 1 or 2 lifts per workout, or he would crash. And the 4th workout in the week, that's where I would put the isolation work, low intensity pump stuff, okay, if they need to muscle. Anyway, to get back to the thing, so if you want to diminish adrenaline and cortisol, one way of doing it is reducing variation in task, making a longer rest intervals so you can focus on that one task, quality instead of trying to kill yourself in the gym. And that's the thing. If you want to improve conditioning and strength, well, you know what? Don't try to do both at the same time. Don't use the lifting workout to work on conditioning. You already have conditioning sessions. The worst thing to do is try to use very short rest intervals, combination in the gym to work on conditioning again. Give an unambiguous signal to the body what you want to achieve. Lift for strength, do everything possible in that session to get as strong as possible. So from a diet standpoint, you have your caloric surplus on those days. You will take supplements that will help you lift more weight, supplements that will help you recover, supplements that will bring cortisol back down after your session so that you can be fresh for the conditioning workout. That's where magnesium would be helpful after the workout, because magnesium will, magnesium is probably the most important supplement an athlete can take. First, because of a hormonal reason, as you know, for testosterone, but the main reason for me is that magnesium will actually dislodge the adrenaline from the receptors. So if you take magnesium post-workout, it doesn't even have to be high dosage, like 250 milligrams is plenty. It will help pull the adrenaline off of the receptors. The less time the adrenaline stays on the receptors, the less likely you are to downregulate, desensitize the receptors. So that's why magnesium after your strength session is so important, so that you have more chances of being fresh the next day.
Sounds like that's one of the main reasons why it helps with deep sleep as well. You take 500 milligrams before sleep, bam, you just shut off.
Dude, absolutely, because the reason why people and sleeping is another big issue, because you can't train hard if you don't sleep, right? And the reason why people don't sleep is like so fucking simple. 9 times out of 10, it's too much adrenaline. I mean, you basically have 3 neurotransmitters that can amp your brain up: dopamine, adrenaline, glutamate. And people will have an issue only with adrenaline and glutamate. Dopamine is never an issue, not from production. However, abuse of blue screen computer, because like your laptop, your smartphone, it emits a blue light that targets the dopamine receptors. It will amp you up and you can't sleep. But that's not your body producing dopamine. It's just you using something that will stimulate the dopamine receptors. So you should have no blue light at least 2 hours before you try to go sleep, probably even more. Now, when it comes to, so you have adrenaline and glutamate, okay? Both can amp you up. Glutamate will give you that worried emotional activation. Like when people who have glutamate is an emotional amplifier. So when you're feeling good, you're feeling fucking awesome. When you're feeling bad, you want to shoot yourself, and sometimes in the same minute, right? People who have huge mood swing, high glutamate. The thing is that glutamate is being added in many foods, right? Like most fast food will add glutamate, commercial coffee, stuff like that. But also people who eat too much of a high glycemic diet, it will also lead to the overproduction of glutamate. So that's one thing that could be the reason why you can't sleep, because you have too much high glycemic meals in your, and I'm pro carbs, but you still want to keep the glycemic index as low as possible most of the day. Now, but the main reason why people don't sleep would be excessive adrenaline. And the excess of adrenaline is simply due to cortisol level. We live a stressful life. If you cannot wind down in the afternoon, cortisol stays up. And as long as cortisol stays up, adrenaline stays up, you can't sleep, right? Magnesium at least will give you a fighter's chance, because it will dislocate the adrenaline from the receptors, helping you calm your brain down. So,
do you think that too much time spent on social media before, let's say 2 hours, let's say someone's on Instagram all the way up until they try to go to sleep. They're on there scrolling and liking, they're posting pics, they're trying to get validation. So these are all things that are increasing adrenaline. So that you don't think it is. You think it might be something relaxing, but it's just the fact of looking at all the stimulation, and then you go to sleep. Now you're in this adrenaline-based state.
Dude, you are with actually, you know what? With social media, you could actually boost all three neurotransmitters that amps your brain up, because the blue light from the screen activates the dopamine receptors. Then you get the excitement from like posting and seeing will people like respond to me. Actually, that's adrenaline.
Yeah.
And then when you have that happy or shitty response, you can actually boost glutamate somewhat. It's like literally the worst thing if you want to go to sleep. But to get back to the training thing,
I took 3 weeks off. I got rid of Facebook and Twitter a while back, and I took 3 weeks off from Instagram. And I read 10 books in 3 weeks. I was so much more productive. Yeah. And it was just one less thing to think about. So it was just one less dissipation of energy. And I found that my workouts were better during those 3 weeks. So now I use it now, but I'm way more judicious now than I was before. Before I was posting constantly, using the story function constantly. And I think there's a way to use it that's effective for building your business. In terms of, look, if I didn't have a business, I wouldn't use it at all. I wouldn't have any social media. Because I don't use it to put my personal life out there. I use it to put out content to build my business. And I also use it for fun too, to track my workouts and interact with people I know. But it can be overused, and I would say most people who use it probably overuse it.
Absolutely, and for the wrong reason. And personal observation, people who normally post about their lives or their relationship have the shittiest life and shittiest relationship. Every single person that were like personal friends of mine, when they actually post about how great their girlfriend is, how awesome it is, it's my soulmate, and yada yada, and they go back and forth, right? They always break up within a few.
That's usually because they got into a fight offline. So they go, right. I gotta say something nice about her online. She'll see it, and then you're trying to project what your life isn't. You're putting
absolutely. You feel unsatisfied with your real life, so you're creating that like persona or that like fake life.
Yeah, because if you're satisfied, you're just going to enjoy it. You don't need to. Other people don't need to know about it. You're enjoying
it. Exactly. Yeah. But again, to go back to the training thing, right? So that's why personally, so if we just circle back, so the elements that would increase cortisol and adrenaline, which you want to minimize, so that you can train hard every day, because the thing that will if you eat properly and you have enough protein, you have enough carbs, and you reduce systemic inflammation, you supplement properly, you will never be out of fuel to do your workout. You will not be under recovered from a muscle fiber perspective. It's always about managing the nervous system. That's the only thing that can prevent you from training frequently different qualities and progress. So you want to manage that as much as possible. So the 6 variables that will increase adrenaline and cortisol are the volume. So you want to, personally, I keep that fairly low. Intensiveness, personally, 99% of my work is the big basic lifts. Okay, I do isolation work. Let's say my training cycle will be 10 weeks. 2 weeks out of those 10 weeks, I will use isolation work, like just as a prep for the heavier lifting. And my belief is that on the big lifts, you never even go close to failure. On the big lifts, you don't grind reps. I'm of the Olympic lifting school of thought that if you look at my rep, it never looks harder than an 8 or 8.5 RPE. I never attempt a rep I'm not sure of doing with good form and good speed. My first rep and my last rep are always exactly the same speed. Okay, and that's how I was brought up. And yes, you can. I mean, I'm still progressing every week. I'm still adding weight, but as I'm getting stronger, 475 will look the same way as 415 at the beginning of the training cycle. But that way, you don't get that adrenaline rush that will make you not be able to recover the next day or train hard the next day. Okay, so that's the second thing. Third thing is psychological stress. I stick with movements that work for me and I'm comfortable with. And neurological demands, you try to minimize the number of exercises so you can become really, really good at certain tasks and you just focus on them. Of course, if you want to maximize muscle growth, exercise variation might be important, and we can touch on that, but that's just for strength and still getting some size. I believe in sticking with the same movement and getting variation by changing the repetition style, accentuating eccentric, isodynamic contrast, isometrics, explosive, all that stuff. I would avoid exercise combination. I would avoid circuits. I would use longer rest intervals to minimize adrenaline. And I would avoid competitive training, meaning that while I always try to use more weight than the preceding session, if you need to rev yourself up to do a set, you are doing more harm than good. It's training. It's not competing. Now, a testing session is different. If you're testing your max, absolutely go crazy. But me, when I test myself, I have 1 week off afterwards, always. So that's what I would do. And that will allow you to avoid burning your receptors, keeping your adrenergic receptors fresh. So the next day, you're still motivated. You still want to train hard. In fact, after a lifting session, you should want to do more. You should want to go out and sprint, but you don't do it. You do it the next day. You carry over that passion to the next day. So the message basically is only work on one thing on a given day. You don't need as many lifting sessions or conditioning sessions per week as you think you need to improve, and make sure that you keep your receptors fresh.
Yeah, I think that's a hard concept for a lot of people to grasp, because we've all been ingrained with this no pain, no gain mantra, and then you should be wiped out. I don't even want to be able to walk to my car after a heavy squat workout or a heavy leg workout. And people take pride in that too. Oh man, the next day I could barely get out of bed. They wear it as a badge of honor, but you're just breaking yourself down over time. It's you can't sustain that kind of.
Here are like two really bad things about that. Okay, the first one, I'm going to tell you a story to illustrate a principle. A few years, normally I'm someone who's really good at like staying within my limit and dominating every rep and like being more conservative. A few years back, I was getting back into the Olympic lifts. Okay, after years of bro work, and what I noticed is that what was holding me back was my leg strength, which was gone compared to what it used to be. So I'm going to bring my squat back up. I'm impatient by nature. I want my leg strength back up like last week, right? So I did one workout one day, and that's an actual workout. Don't do that workout. It's stupid as shit. Okay. I did a complex with 3 exercises. First red flag. The first one was back squat. Okay. I was using squats with chains and releasers at the same time. So I had like 160 kilos on the bar. I probably had like 20 kilos per side in chains and 20 kilos on weight releasers. I would do the first rep with a slow eccentric, then do 3 explosive reps. Then I would do 5 jump squats with 60 kilos, and then 5 depth jumps, and I did 10 sets. Wow. The next day, and honestly, like it's like 2 knives on my vastus lateralis. For 14 days, I couldn't squat down lower than a half squat. It took me 21 days to be able to do a full squat with the same weight I was able to do before the session. Now, that's an extreme case, but I essentially wasted 3 weeks of training. Now, of course, that's not to the extreme of I can't walk after a leg day, bro. But still, that will absolutely hurt several workouts afterwards, which is never, it's not about how many great workouts you have, it's how many bad workouts you have. You want to have as many good, but not like I'm killing it workout as possible. It's an average, right? So that's the first problem. But the second part?
Trouble when they focus on demonstrating strength at every workout as opposed to building strength. I would say building strength is a lot different than demonstrating strength.
It's not the same thing.
Often when I train, people say, man, you look like you could have done a lot more. Exactly. I go, oh, I know. And that's exactly what I want people to say when they see me do something. But it takes a lot of discipline to leave reps in the bank, especially for those of us who love working out, because we want to push ourselves. But you have to put the brakes on, and that takes a lot of discipline, because especially when you're feeling really strong, especially when you start training like this, you start building strength real fast. And then you start going, man, I should push it a little bit further. I'll build strength even faster. No, you won't. That's going to pull it back. So it takes a lot of discipline to leave a workout fresh. That's why people
100%
with it.
But it's really the secret for several reasons. First, for longevity reasons. I mean, doing that allows you to do more sets. It allows you to train more often. It keeps you in a better mood, mindset during the whole week. You don't get injured. You can train hard for much longer. I mean, like this morning, I did 455 for 3 reps on the safety bar squat. Now the safety bar squat, you're 10% weaker than on the back squat. So that would be like 485, 495 barbell back squat. And my lifetime best when I competed in weightlifting was 500 for 5. So it's pretty darn close to and I'm like 43 with 2 kids. I will be able to do this for at least 10 more years because I don't get injured, right? But the main reason is that, and people don't understand this, okay? Schmidt-Bleicher principle, okay? Dietmar Schmidt-Bleicher, sports scientist, neurologist. The last thing you do on an exercise is the thing that has the greatest impact on motor learning on that movement. So if the last rep you do on an exercise is slow, it's grinded, it's out of the groove because you're tired and you need to compensate, that's what the nervous system remembers and programs into your motor pattern. If you do that once, that's not a big problem. But if every workout and every set you do, you finish with those 1 or 2 grinded reps, these are the reps that have the greatest impact on motor learning. And what happens is you don't notice anything, but you know what? Your lifts just start getting harder and harder. And one day, you know what? I'm feeling completely out of the groove. I feel weird, and you can't explain why. It's because every week, every workout, you have a very, very, very small degradation in technique. And at first, you don't notice it because it's not significant, but eventually it builds up, and now the compensation becomes your normal mechanic, and it's just not efficient. And it feels weird, and you get injured. Now, if every rep is done, boom, 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 perfect, good speed, good position, then you will always have positive motor learning and you reinforce good technique. I mean, and I'm exactly the same way as you. I mean, people always comment, you know what, you could have easily done 4 or 5. First of all, no, but you don't want to. I mean, to me, okay, doing 200 kilos on squat fast is stronger than 220 kilos grinded.
Absolutely.
There's something about like doing a big lift with a heavy weight, but looking like it's a warm-up.
Yeah, I love it.
The biggest compliment I got when I posted a squat video is that, dude, that was my last work set of a workout. I said, dude, you're faster than my warm-up. And that's what I want. That's what you want. I mean, if you're getting stronger, you're using gradually more weight with that rep style, you're getting stronger. You don't need the proof on the bar. Oh, okay, I lifted 40 pounds more. Yeah, but you lost 0.3 meter per second of speed and you got out of the groove. I did one set, not this workout, the previous workout. It was my last week of 5x5, and I was using 415. My last set, on the second rep, like I got slightly lean. I got out of the groove, leaning forward a bit. It's barely noticeable, but I felt it. And because of that, I lost tons of fuel. By rep number 4, which was still solid, I felt, well, you know what? The 5th rep will not be like really solid. I might grind it. I racked the bar. I racked the bar, rested 5 minutes, and I did a 6th set, and boom, 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 all 5 were clean. I wanted to do that because you don't want to finish on the set that was suboptimal. Now, during those 5 minutes, I thought to myself, do I decrease the weight to make sure that all the reps are dominated, or can I do those 5 reps with the same weight? So I analyzed everything. You know what? The reason why that 415 was hard was because I got out of the groove on 1 rep. Just focus on the technique and all reps would be fine, and that's what happened. Okay. Yeah. Never finish on a bad rep. If you do Olympic lift, that PR mentality, like demonstrating strength, like you mentioned, you work up to the heaviest weight you can, which is the dumbest thing you can do. Because you're finishing on your worst lift. On paper, it's a good lift because it's the heaviest one, but it's the shittiest technique. If you want to do that, fine. Okay, if you want to do that because your insecure ego needs the confirmation that you're getting stronger, fine. But at least after you're done, lower the weight by 20% and do 3 reps super dominant, super fast, so that the nervous system at least remembers the motor programming will be positive, so you don't have any technique degradation.
Right. That's so well said. And I think when I say demonstrating strength, what you're really doing is demonstrating lack of strength, because no one gets strong when you treat every workout as a PR session. Oh. And that's a mistake most young men in particular make, but it's not just young men, it's most trainees. Most people I see, they're trying to push it to that limit because they think that's what they need to do. And I think that if the emphasis is on technique, and like you said, the last rep should look just as good as the first rep, that's a sign of mastery. There's a guy in the kettlebell world, Valery Fedorenko. This guy's got incredible abilities. I mean, he can overhead press 106-pound kettlebell, 48 gram kettlebell 30 times each arm, and this guy weighs about 80 kilos. Now, what's really amazing is that the 30th rep looks just as crisp and fresh as the first rep. His technique is perfect on everything he does.
But there's a difference between like me and you and most people, is that we basically were brought up in a sport where efficiency is a premium. You in kettlebell sport, and me in Olympic weightlifting. So when I was around, and I was never a great Olympic weightlifter, my technique sucked, my mobility wasn't that great, but I was around lots of good Olympic weightlifter, and what I saw is that, you know what, when they train, everything looks easy. Even the heaviest squats look easy. So me, because I grew up in that kind of crowd, well, that's how you should train. So it's not weird for me to leave 2 reps in the tank. That's how, in my mind, everybody was doing it. It's only when I started working alongside bodybuilders and guys like that I saw like those grinded reps, like changing the range of motion mid-set so that they can finish those reps, thinking that it's the grind that will build muscle. No, it's not. Okay, and anyway, it comes with more drawback than anything. Now, if you want to go to failure, if you want to go past failure, if you want to like go for the pain, bro, that's absolutely fine. And it can work, but do it on machines. Do it on isolation exercises. Don't do it on exercise with a technical component.
I think there's a lot of excitement that comes with these adrenaline-based type personality workouts, right? Tom Platz is an example. I mean, it's exciting to watch his training sessions. It's motivating, and people want to go to the gym and destroy. But you have to look at him as an anomaly in this whole thing. He's able to thrive on that, but that doesn't mean that you will. So trying to replicate those workouts is not going to be favorable for most people. And it may not, and he could have probably, I mean, as impressive as he was, he may have been even more impressive if he dialed things a little bit back.
Absolutely.
Such an intense guy, though, that I'm sure that would have been difficult. You know, Dave Goggins is another guy. I think Dave Goggins is an incredible guy. I read his book recently. I think he's amazing. His training systems, though, I don't see it as sustainable. I think at some point, I mean, he's already broken down his body a great deal. He's managed to come back from a lot of these injuries. But I think that mentality of you can always do more, you always should do more, that's a hard one to get people to let go of, because that's what people always think they need to do. Even with building a business, they always think I need to work harder. No, you need to work smarter. I've worked harder before on stuff and I got diminishing returns. You work hard, but you have to work smart too. You have to have strategies.
Yeah, and you know, and as far as training is concerned, I mean, we should not forget the elephant in the room: steroids.
Oh yeah.
I mean, people think that all they do is that it makes you like grow muscle faster. No, it's not all they do. First of all, okay, steroids, the main issue that we just like talked about for like 45 minutes or 30 minutes is that when you want to be able to train properly, like day in and day out, or and combine many things, you want to minimize adrenaline, so you need to keep cortisol at a manageable level. Well, steroids will actually counteract cortisol. Not just for anabolism, because if you overload the body with anabolics, it counteracts the catabolic effect of cortisol, but it's a lot more than that. Because at the cellular level, okay, at the cellular level, cortisol will bind to the glucocorticoid receptor, testosterone and steroid to the androgen receptor. That's fine. But at that level, once the hormone is bound to the receptors, it sends a message to the nucleus of the cell, right? But the thing is that cortisol and testosterone or steroids, glucocorticoid receptors and androgen receptors, it uses the same messenger to send a signal to the nucleus of the cell. If you overflow the cell with androgen, you are hogging all the messengers, so cortisol actually cannot do its job at the cellular level. So you actually get less cortisol action. It's not just compensating, you're actually blocking it in part. And the reason why like bodybuilders will lose their muscle once they go off is that the body adapts by actually increasing production of cortisol over time, and eventually can increase cortisol receptors sensitivity. And if they stay on for too long, they will actually add cortisol receptors. Now, when you take the androgens off and you are in hypercortisol mode, you're going to lose everything. But the point is that drugs allow you to minimize the cortisol response, so there's a less chance of overtraining. Also, most anabolics, especially if they have a high androgen ratio, They increase the sensitivity of the beta adrenergic receptors. What people call roid rage really is that your body is over responding to adrenaline. Adrenaline is responsible for being competitive, being driven, being motivated, but it also makes you impatient and aggressive. Okay, right. Fight or flight mode. So those high level of high androgen steroids, it makes the beta adrenergic receptors more sensitive to adrenaline. Now, if you go back to what I said earlier, that what we call training burnout is that those receptors become desensitized. Well, if you take androgens, it increases their sensitivity. So it kind of like prevent neurological quote unquote overtraining. So it's not the same. You can actually push yourself to the limit with steroids, and both from a muscle standpoint and a quote unquote nervous system standpoint, you are able to get away with a lot more. It's not just because you can build more muscle. It's a lot more than that. So we need to take that into consideration. Like the Bulgarian training. I mean, I love weightlifting. I tried competing, training like a Bulgarian. I felt like I wanted to kill myself after a week and a half. Because not everybody can sustain that.
You were training several times a day. Because there's different Bulgarian programs that have propagated out there over the years. So what were you doing with that?
It was the actual like bodybuilding, because you have like Bulgarian-ish programs, which are basically people making their own adaptation of a Bulgarian-ish approach. I mean, I myself have put out
Serious Growth System by Leo Costa.
Yeah, but that has literally nothing to do with their weightlifting training, like zero. Yeah. It's not even close. It's I don't even know why it's called, but it doesn't make sense. So Bulgarian training is you train between 2 and 6 times a day, but really it's 2 or 3 workouts. But sometimes the thing is that those workouts are segmented. So for example, you would train front squats, then you ramp up to a 1 RM, you rest for 20 minutes, then you do snatch to a 1 RM, you rest for 30 minutes, you do clean and jerk. That's one workout, but it could be counted as 3 micro workout, and you would do that twice a day. So that's either 2 or 6 workout, depending on how you want to see it. Okay. And it was basically always ramping up to a 1 RM or very close to it. The difference is if we needed to quote unquote deload or take an easy session, instead of ramping up to a maximum snatch, it would be ramping up to a maximum power snatch. Instead of ramping up to a max clean and jerk, or a power clean push jerk, for example. So that would be an example. So it was doing that 5 or 6 days a week. And right. Dude, I literally like felt symptoms of depression. Now I understand what it is, because depression is nothing more than it's serotonin, it's dopamine, it's adrenaline. But if you downregulate your beta receptors, you will have depression-like symptoms. So that's what it was. There was a study conducted in 2015 by Andrew Fry and colleagues, and they actually had lifters on the Bulgarian-ish lifting program for 2 weeks. And the lifters, on average, they reported a downregulation, a desensitization of the beta adrenergic receptors by 40% in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, they have 40% less response to their own adrenaline. So when you do that, dude, you live on pre-workout just to be able to get your sessions in, which is even worse, because those pre-workout will amp you up even more and will desensitize you even more. It's a slippery slope. I had a guy quote unquote worked with. I didn't really work with him because he would never follow the program. He's the guy who was always trying to demonstrate strength, right? The moment there's another strong dude in the gym or a good looking girl, he's maxing out, right?
That's always the motivations.
Oh, dude. The thing is that he was actually a very good athlete. He could have been special. Anyway, so at one point he actually had to take, he would take his pre-workout and just put the powder straight in his mouth. So he had to do that to train. Eventually, he graduated to speeds, amphetamines, and eventually he ramped up to cocaine. Just to be able to train.
Yeah. See, I mean, I think just when you feel like you need a stimulant-based pre-workout, that's already a problem.
Absolutely.
You even need that to get yourself revved up to train. Otherwise, you're not going to train at all. And a lot of people I know, they take some pride in that too. They go, man, if I don't take my pre-workout, I can't do anything. But once I take my pre-workout, I can run on the treadmill for an hour, then I can lift weights for an hour. It's going to come at a cost, because now, see, the thing is, you're already going into the workout in a fatigue state. And now you're going to be even more fatigued afterwards than you would have been if you didn't take anything. Because at least if you didn't take anything, you wouldn't have had the illusion of energy.
Correct.
So you would have had to pace it at a more realistic level.
Yeah, and the product itself, here's three problems. First, exactly what you mentioned. It allows you to do work that you shouldn't be doing because it masks fatigue, but that actual fatigue is still there and it builds up. Second, the product itself will cause recovery issue by down-regulating the beta receptors. And finally, well, you never learn about proper programming. Right. I mean, because if you can't train because you're too smashed, you're doing something wrong.
That's
either
right.
with training, with nutrition, or your lifestyle, and you need to fix that. But if you take a crutch, you never learn how to fix it.
Right.
So that's a big issue. But to me, those stimulants are essentially like taking a loan at a bank. I mean, it's cool. You have tons of money you can spend around, but you know what? You're going to have to pay back with interest eventually.
Right. That's exactly right. I mean, sleep deprivation is the same thing. You might be able to get away with lack of sleep for a while, but eventually you're gonna have to sleep for 12 hours a night to start getting back to feeling good. You can only get away with it for so long. You're going into debt. You're going into a deprived state.
Yeah, the problem is that, at first, when you are deprived of sleep, you can actually have an increase in strength performance and speed performance, because the body, to survive the next day, it will amp up adrenaline production even more, cortisol and adrenaline. So in the short term, it actually, because of the over response in the sympathetic system, you have more energy, but it comes at a price again because you will burn out really fast. But some people actually think, you know what? Hey, dude, I slept for 2 hours last night and I beat a PR. I'm good. I don't need that much sleep. You know what? You're going to crash and burn really fast.
Yeah. And when you do crash and burn, it's not going to be a quick recovery. It's going to be a while. It's going to take a long time before you start feeling good.
Absolutely, dude. I have a consultation with a French mixed martial artist on Tuesday, and he has that issue. I mean, he's been basically living on like super low carbs diet, which is the worst diet ever for a mixed martial artist. And like living on stimulants, and now he had to cancel 3 fights in a row because he just can't train. He just can't train because he has no life energy. But it's going to be a long, long way back. I mean, you can have supplements that will help you, but you know what? You're actually going to have to use extreme measures just to be able to train again. And he's not going to like what I'm going to suggest.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Everything you've said about adrenaline reminds me of a book I read called Adrenaline Dominance. And it's basically about adrenaline resistance by this guy, Dr. Platt. And he basically said everything that you just said is that people get adrenaline resistance, just like insulin resistance, just like leptin resistance, 100%. Where they're producing a lot of adrenaline, but it's not getting picked up on the receptor level. Yeah. So you have all this adrenaline in your bloodstream without any benefit of that adrenaline.
And also the thing is that some people are genetically predisposed to that. For 2 reasons. The first reason is the COMT enzyme you have, the catechol O-methyltransferase enzyme, the enzyme that breaks down adrenaline. And you have a type that is a slow COMT, a fast that is a fast COMT. Slow COMT will break down adrenaline really slowly. So when you release it, it stays in the system for a long, long, long time. When you are fast breakdown, fast enzyme, then you release adrenaline, it comes back down like quite as fast. So for example, someone who can train super hard, get amped up, and 20 minutes later he's napping. That's someone who can break down adrenaline really fast. Much less chance of overtraining, burning out. Okay, so that's the first thing, and that's genetic. It's in your genes. Like people who like will normally sleep 2 or 3 hours a night, or just workaholic, always working, super aggressive, like those adrenaline personality you mentioned. Well, that's because they can't break it down. The moment they get a tiny bit of adrenaline, it stays with them for the whole day. And you also have a second condition, which would be related to methylation. If you're someone with a poor methylation capacity, well, you also have a hard time clearing adrenaline out of your system. So it will stay with you for a lot longer.
No doubt. I mean, that was an incredible discussion on just one question. So your wealth of knowledge is profound. Let's pivot a little bit and talk about isometrics, because that's something that you got me into a little bit, and I've seen a few other people adding that to their regimens. How would someone? I mean, first of all, when should someone add isometrics? Is this something that's useful for a beginner, or is it a more advanced training technique? And then, how would they add isometrics in effectively?
Can we pause for a second? I need to go pee.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah, I'll just keep recording. I'll edit that out.
Just old man prostate. Actually, it's because I'm drinking like 7 liters of water a day.
That'll do it. Okay, so now we're back to picking up on the isometrics topic.
So we have basically, well, we have several types of isometrics. We have pure isometrics, which means that you are producing force without any movement. It could be what I call overcoming isometrics. So you're trying to lift a resistance that can't move. So for example, you're in a power rack and you're pulling against spins and it doesn't move. And then you have yielding isometrics, which is you are lowering yourself in a position and you are holding that position for the duration of the set. That would be pure isometrics. Then you have a combination of isometrics and dynamic actions in a set. For example, you're squatting down to the midpoint, you're pausing for 3 seconds, you're continuing your descent, and then you go up. So you're including an isometric action in the set. Now, they both have benefits and can be used for different purposes. Like the one I use the most is the combination, the statodynamic action, which is including pauses in the movement. There are many benefits to that. And I do use it actually a lot more with beginners. Because to me, the best benefit of statodynamic actions is teaching proper lifting technique and proper positioning. Because movement can hide weaknesses. Because if you go, and the faster you go, the more you can hide them, because the momentum can actually allow you to bypass weak points and stay on course. Okay, it's like if you're driving a car and there's an ice patch in front of you. If you like driving at 110 miles an hour, you're just going to fly over it and you're not going to have any problems. But if you're driving just slow enough to need the traction and spend some time on the ice, you're going to like move sideways. So that's the issue. So when you're doing regular reps, you could have a weak part, a weak position that would normally lead to a change in body position that will make you miss the lift. And these weak points will show up on those heavier weights, and by then it's often too late to solve. Now, when you are including pauses during a movement, you can really focus first on having the person feels what the proper position should be. And as a coach, for example, it gives you an opportunity to give him a coaching cue. There's nothing worse than giving a coaching cue, a lifting cue to a lifter while he's lifting the weight. That's the best way to screw his technique.
Such a good point.
Dude, but that's overcoaching 101. But if he's squatting and he's told him, well, hold the mid-range position for 5 seconds, then you can give him one cue during that position because he's not focused on technique. So they're just squatting. So keep your chest up or screw your feet in the ground. Grab the floor with your toes, something like that. And you can actually feel the position. And the more you're capable of feeling that position, the more likely you're programming that in your brain. And when you're squatting, you will be good in that position. For a more advanced lifter, the benefit of those isometric pauses is you are strengthening a key position in the lift. Ideally, you would hold just before or just after your natural sticking point. The reason is that you will strengthen mostly the angle being trained during an isometric action. But there's like a 15 degrees carryover. So you don't have to hold exactly the weak position because that will limit how much weight you can use. But if you hold like 1 inch above it, you will be able to use more weight, but you get the full strength transfer over the full range of motion. So I really like that to be able to strengthen a key position, a weak point. Or if I'm working with an athlete who has the tendency to overdo it weight-wise. I mean, we talked about these guys earlier. Like they always want to push to their limit. I mean, I have a guy like that. He's a bobsleigh guy and super strong. But when I write an RP of 8 in a program, for him, 8 is 10.5. Like it would be like the slowest grind. I would not be physically capable of grinding like that. So I often use multiple pauses during the set, either during the eccentric or even during the concentric, so that he absolutely needs to use less weight. And you won't do those like grinded reps because you can't do them when you have pauses. It will just take too much out of you. So as a way to control intensity, and a lifter who needs to feel like, you know what, I need to feel like I'm pushing my sets. You know what? Have him use 3 pauses during the concentric phase of a squat. He will feel like he's trashing his body, but he's going to be using 60% of what he normally uses on the bar. And every effort is going to be perfect because since you're pausing every 3 inches on the way up, you don't have a choice but to maintain perfect position. So it's like a mind trick you can play on them. And also, if someone, okay, here's a pretty cool application of isometrics I use with athletes who are too focused on always adding weight to the bar, okay? I call it the fixed weight progression model. So you do a training cycle, could be 4 to 6 weeks, okay? And for the duration of the cycle, you are using the same weight on the barbell for your work sets. Same number of reps, but you are changing how you're doing those reps. Every week you use a method that is slightly harder. So for example, the first week could be just regular reps. The second week, you could have 1 isometric pause during the eccentric. The third week, 2 isometric pauses during the eccentric again. The next week, 1 hold during the eccentric, 1 during the concentric, and the 5th week, 2 holds during the concentric. If you're using the same weight for those 5 weeks and using the same number of reps, you are getting stronger because every week you're using a method in which every repetition is harder. You don't have to add more weight to the bar for you to gain strength. So that's actually a very good way of disciplining someone who to not be focused solely on the barbell weight, but on how you're lifting. The side benefit is that those pauses will do wonders to improve their lifting mechanics, and they will reprogram the movement pattern. Now, as far as pure isometrics are concerned, like if you are in a rack, you want to work on the sticking point of your deadlift, you will set the power rack so that, or you can use a device like the ISO chain by Dragon Door, which is awesome. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I think that's made by John Bruni, if I'm familiar, if I'm correct. I might be wrong, but that sounds like something he would create because he's really into that style.
It was created by the guy who wrote Convict Conditioning.
Oh, that guy. Yeah, well, that we don't know who that guy is because there's a rumor that that's a ghostwriter. No one's ever met that guy. No. I got an email from that guy one time, but
he did send me an email saying that he really loved my work.
Yeah, no one's ever seen a picture of that guy, so he's a mystery man out there.
That's a good marketing strategy, though.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna do that next time. I'm gonna create some fictional character and write a book.
Well, you know, Jay Schroeder did that with like creating a persona called DB Hammer. I don't know if you remember that.
I didn't know that. That's hilarious.
You can actually find some of his articles on Elite FTS, but like Jay Schroeder was like famous for a few moments for training Artem Archuleta using lots of isometrics. Anyway, he was very secretive about his methods, but he wrote a book talking about his method under the pseudonym like Dietmar Bruckenholz. Like
really? Hammer. That's hilarious. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, anyway, so it was called the best sports training book ever. That was the name of the book.
No arrogance there whatsoever.
No. Oh, it's a ghostwriter. So. But anyway, the device it's pretty. It's like a plate you stand on, and there's a chain with an handle, and you just pull, and it really gives you a force reading. That's pretty cool. So anyway, it's just basically you're selecting the height at which you want to work, either by the power rack or that device, and then you will produce as much force as possible pulling against the pins. And that's probably one of the fastest way to strengthen a specific position in the lift. So that would be a great tool to quickly fix a weak point in a big basic movement. From experience, it works best with the deadlift and the bench press and the overhead press. Doesn't work as well with the squat for some reason. Probably because the squat is much less linear than those movements. Anyway, the overhead press works pretty well. So you would do sets of 6 seconds, producing as much force as possible. You basically are ramping up force for 6 seconds. So the first 3 seconds, you're ramping up force. The last 3 seconds, it's an all-out effort. People really overdo isometrics. You do like 3 sets of those max. So that's a pretty good way of strengthening a weak point. It can also be used by an advanced lifter prior to a maxing out session. just to amp up the nervous system. So you would do that, like 1 or 2 pulls like that before a deadlift max effort. So you would do like 3 to 6 seconds all-out effort on the isometric pull, rest 4 minutes, then do your max effort attempt. So that would actually give you a few more pounds. So that's a pretty good strategy. But again, it's just about demonstrating strength. It really doesn't build it, okay?
Right.
Now, with the benefit of pure isometrics, okay, when it comes to physiology and neurology, both the overcoming, which is trying to lift a weight that you can't move, or just holding a certain position, which I use quite a bit, is that there's an increase in the activation of the synergistic and antagonistic muscles. So for example, in the squat, prime movers being the quad, when you do an isometric action, at, let's say at 90 degrees in the angle, you're going to have a greater quads, hamstrings, and glutes activation. So the cool thing with that is that over time, if you do it often enough, you can program those muscles to be more involved in the main lift. Now, you will tell me, well, yeah, but I don't want the antagonist to be contracted because it's fighting off the agonist. No, they're not, because what they're doing is just contracting enough to create joint stability. And the more joint stability you have, the more the agonist can contract. So by increasing, for example, activation of the hamstrings when you're squatting, the quads can actually work harder because they feel safer that way. And that's the thing, the more stable your body is, the more of your natural strength it will allow you to lift. That's why you can very easily gain 20-30% strength without gaining an ounce of muscle, just by having a better relationship between the synergistic and then the agonist muscles. Another like corollary to that, for example, I'm pretty sure that the listeners can relate to what I'm saying, is that we've all, let's say you've been dieting down, okay, for a photo shoot or just to look better, and you're training, and you know what, all your isolation exercises are staying the same strength, like triceps, lateral raises, pec deck, whatever you want. It's all the same weight, but your bench press is down 40 pounds. And you can't understand why, because all your muscles are the same strength, but bench press is going down. And everybody has seen that. I mean, the reason is that as you're dieting down, even if you're just losing fat and water, you are losing passive joint stability at the shoulder joint. Because there's not, at the shoulder joint, you have the muscle, of course, surrounding it, but you have tons of water, glycogen, all that goo, like basically creating pressure on that joint, creating stability, right? And it's passive stability. You don't need any muscle activation to do that. But when you're dieting down, you're losing that fluid, either subcutaneous, intracellular, intramuscular, and you're losing some glycogen, so there's much less joint packing, so your passive stability is much lower. And now the weight feels super heavy in your hands, and your body simply does not let you use all of its strength potential, because the less stable it feels, the less it will allow you to use your strength, okay? What athletes I'm training like 2 powerlifters. One, she's a female. She's like 67 kilos. She squatted 227 kilos. She deadlifted 220. She bench pressed 125. Even when she's dropping weight, her strength goes up. And this guy, also a huge number. He was bench pressing 200 kilos. And his body, he dieted down from 120 kilos to 105 kilos, and his bench press did not change at all, because we do a lot of isometric work, because we do lots of slow eccentric work, and both increase dynamic stability. Okay, so basically those isometric, they work on your capacity of all the non-prime mover to fire to stabilize a joint, to fix a joint. And when you work on that over time, even as you are losing passive stability, you have the active stability to be able to compensate. Now, but I can do like rotator cuff work or push up on a Swiss ball. No, you can't. I mean, you need to do stability under a heavy load to be stable under a heavy load. That's also where the frequency of practice comes into play, sticking to the same movement so that the brain knows what exact strategy to use on that exercise. I mean, if, for example, you go from bench press to incline bench to decline bench, it's not the same strategy. It's not the same angle. You're not using the same stabilization work, okay? So you need to repeat the same movement, and the more often, the better you become at an exercise, the more active stability automatically you have. And those isometric do that also.
Yeah, I think a lot of the variety for the sake of variety is more marketing than it is actually effectiveness. It's also clients that are easily bored. But see that what I always say about boredom is like, look, no one's bored when they're actually making progress.
Correct.
If you're getting stronger and your performance is getting better and you're feeling better and you're looking better, no one's craving variety under those states. So when people say, oh yeah, I have to give my client this because he or she gets bored easily, like no, she doesn't get bored easily. Not making enough progress. So this is a distraction. Like, okay, you're not making progress. What we're going to do is we're just going to try something different. Yeah. And now it feels like you have the illusion of getting back on track.
That's absolutely correct, because the first 2 or 3 times you do a new exercise, you will progress just by becoming better at that movement. And it gives the illusion of progress.
Right.
But that's not real progress. You need to stick to a movement for a certain period of time. It becomes automatic so that the gains are actual strength gains. That's absolutely correct. And I believe that, and I'll go one step further, saying that coaches who rely mostly on those crazy exercises and variations oftentimes just don't know how to get somebody strong. Right. That's all it is. That's all it is. I mean, look at the best Olympic weightlifters in the world. Look at the best powerlifters in the world, except the West Side guys. All these, the Ukrainian, the Russians, all these guys, they don't use lots of variation. They stick to the same basic exercise. They will vary the methods. They will vary the tools. Sometimes they might bench with a different bar or squat with a different bar, but it's still the same movement.
Look at someone like Ed Coan, considered the greatest powerlifter ever. All he did was bench press, squat, deadlift. He did some accessory moves, but he didn't use chains. He didn't use bands. He didn't do all these variations. Not that there's anything wrong with those things, but he was a stickler for the basics, and it worked.
Well, there is something wrong with those things, Mike. There is something wrong with those things. First, it's funny you mentioned Ed, because I actually mentioned him in my my post today about training, when I said that, you know what, linear periodization gets a bad rep.
Yeah.
Because of the popularity of like conjugate training. Now, the good old linear periodization, for some reason, people think it's not effective. Dude, most of the strongest guy in the world train using linear periodization. That's how Ed Coan trained. He would do 3 weeks of 10s, 3 weeks of 8, 3 weeks of 5, 3 weeks of 3, 2 weeks of 1. That's how he trained. And you can't argue with results, right? And you're right. He didn't use many. Like the only assistance exercise he would really use would be rowing and chin-ups or stuff like that.
Now we can say that he used anabolics. That would be the opposition approach. But who wasn't using anabolics?
Yeah, exactly.
There are all the West Side guys use anabolics too. So it's not like he's the only guy using anabolics.
No, and you look at the West Side guys, and I'm not dissing the West Side guys. They're way stronger than I ever was. I mean, and I believe lots of their methods is really good. But when it comes, and again, okay, that's because probably the federation they lift in, they do have the shittiest lifting technique of all power lifters. Like honestly, I don't know if the judging standards are down the shitter, but most of these squats, I mean, compare those squats to the squats you see in the IPF, or back when Ed Coan was lifting, it was ass to grass, it was like full range. Now it's like they're basically doing the split, you were going down 3 inches. I mean, so what? I mean, that's basically like just a walkout. I mean, that's
the sumo deadlift where you're as wide as you can be.
I know, exactly.
Mark Philippi told me that with the sumo deadlift in competition, the athlete should be required to bring the stance back to neutral, right shoulder width stance. So in other words, you lift the weight and then you have to bring your legs in to complete it, because otherwise it's just even then it's a partial motion, but at least it adds a component of difficulty. And whenever I think a lot of people get excited, and I'm not dissing the sumo deadlift, I think that actually has a place, but I'm a big fan of conventional. That's what I use. I think that's just the most functional, and it's just what I prefer as well. I think that also can give you the illusion of progress too, because you go from conventional to sumo and all of a sudden you're lifting more and you go, okay, I'm getting stronger, but did your conventional improve as well?
Well, you know, I have nothing against a lifter using every legal way of lifting more in competition on competition day.
Right.
But in training, you don't do that. I mean, for example, okay, one powerlifter I work with, in training, we control the bar all the way down on every deadlift rep. We don't just lower until the knees and then drop it down. Until the bar is on the floor, it's lowered slowly under control. Sometimes we even use slow eccentric on the deadlift. People say, well, you can't do a control eccentric on deadlift. Well, if you can do a control eccentric on a deadlift, you just have poor lifting mechanics. You don't understand how to lower the bar. People will just try to lower it as a squat. It's a Romanian deadlift, and once it passes the knee, now you're squatting down. Okay. Anyway, So, but yeah, it's just like with CrossFit. Like CrossFit, okay, the kipping pull-up doesn't have a place, in my opinion, on a regular training program if you want to get stronger and bigger or more muscular. But in competition, it's allowed. So you do need to work on that skill, but you should spend more time working on strict pull-ups. I had a CrossFit competitor I worked with, female. She could do a strict ring muscle up with an 40 kilos kettlebell. Strict.
Yeah.
Because we did lots of strict pulling. Anyway, so yeah, to get back to like training, when you mentioned that nothing against chains or bands, well, I honestly personally have something against chains or bands. And I do use them from time to time. I think that when properly used, it's a decent tool, but you need to understand what it does for a lifter who doesn't lift in an equipped powerlifting competition. By equipped, I mean using a bench shirt, using a squat suit, and super thick knee wraps that essentially give you a bounce from the bottom position. Okay, and I nothing against like raw versus equipped powerlifting. It's just two different sports. The fact of the matter is, in normal lifting, like without any supportive gear, when you look at a bench or a squat or deadlift, the strength curve is a resistance curve is in such a way that the lift is hardest at the bottom and toughest, hardest at the bottom, easiest at the top. You can half squat a lot more than you can full squat because the weakest portion in the bottom. Same thing in the bench press, you're much stronger in the lockout than in the bottom. When you look at equipped powerlifting, it's reversed because the shirt or the squat suit gives you a spring from the bottom. The first half is actually the easier half, and the completion becomes the hardest part. Which explains, for example, why West Side guys will use tons and tons and tons of triceps work, whereas that advice, although it's always good for powerlifter to have strong tricep, and the under focus on pectoral strength led to many pectoral injuries. Because if you're a raw lifter, you need more pectoral strength and more shoulder strength than tricep strength because that's where you're weaker, right? Same thing with a squat. West Side will use mostly glutes and hamstring assistance work because that's what they need for a squat because of their style. Whereas a raw lifter who squats more upright with a narrower stance, it's more quad dominant. So they will need more assistance work for the quads. Dan Green, one of the greatest power lifter of all time, said that his two favorite assistance exercise were the front squat and the wide grip bench press because he needs more pec and more quads because he doesn't rely as much on the equipment. So when you look at the chains and bands, what they do is also reverse the resistance curve because at the bottom, they decrease the resistance because the chains are on the floor or the bands are not stretched as much. And the higher you go, the more resistance you have, making the last half of the lift harder than the first half, okay? Which mimics the strength curve, the resistance curve of equipped powerlifting, super specific for them. But if you're a raw lifter, it's the reverse to what you need. So if you do too much of your training with chains or bands, you're programming your nervous system to produce less force in the bottom and more at the top, which is the opposite of what you need. I remember myself when I was big into those chains and bands because I get excited by training tools and I just go all wild on them. I was using chains on bench press and bands on overhead press. I remember that. I even worked up to a point where I was using on strict press. I had 205 pounds on military press with bands on top. So I figured, you know what? Hey, dude, when I'm going to take those bands off, I'm going to strict press at least 245. At least. You know how much I overhead press when I took the bands off? Same 205. Yeah. Because it didn't strengthen where I needed more strength. And it taught my brain, and on squat it can be even worse because if you always squat with bands or chains, it actually teaches you to produce less force, to relax in the bottom, and then you get pinned under the bar.
I'm so glad we're having this discussion because this is going to help me modify a couple of things I've been doing because I use some bands on deadlifts and I like the feel of it. It's fun. But it's also reinforcing, it's enforcing what I'm already good at, but it's taking away from what I'm not so good at because I never have a problem walking out the bar once I get it past the knees. I've never had a problem where I get a bar off the floor and I can't finish it. I can always finish it, but getting it off the floor can be the hard point. And if I'm overusing bands and chains, now I'm getting better at what I'm already good at, but I'm getting worse at what I need to improve. So that's a lot of food for thought. That's really useful for me.
Yeah, chains or bands would be useful for several reasons. It can be useful if the lifter is actually weaker in that second half of the movement.
Right.
So that could be useful. It can be useful in what I call accentuated training. And that is used only with athletes. Okay? Accentuated training is when you're playing a certain sport and you need to strengthen a certain range of motion more. Like for example, if you're a sprinter or you're playing a sport when you need to run or jump, the key knee angle to produce force at is around 100 and 110 degrees. Okay, that's the knee angle that you have when you're pushing on the floor when you're sprinting, or the knee angle that most people have when they're jumping in a sport. So accentuation means you are using more weight in that range of motion to be able to get it stronger, as strong as possible. That's why some research have shown that half squats are actually better than full squats at improving jumping height, because it's strength, because you can use more weight in the range you need. So that specific range gets stronger. So that could be used. So you can use chains or bands with an athlete before squat to still work the full range of motion to some extent while accentuating that last part of the range of motion. But I would not make that the primary training because it will mess up motor pattern. Okay. So that's why you need to use that with care. Now, for your specific case, one of the best approach you could use would be the two best exercises to strengthen the start of the deadlift. The first one is floating deadlifts. Don't know if it's kind of, you've done deficit deadlifts, right?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Right? So a floating deadlift is very similar to that in that you're standing on a plate, but the bar doesn't start on the floor. It starts like 2 inches from the floor on every rep. So essentially, it's the same range of motion as if you were on the floor, but doing from the bar from the floor. So basically, standing on the podium allow you to have the bar off the floor, but still work the full range of motion. So you start every rep with a 2-second hold in that start position, and then you go under control, you pause, you lift up. So you really get strong in that bottom position. And the second exercise, the one, and probably the one I've seen strengthen the start of the deadlift more than anything, would be Anderson squats. So you use a low bar squat from the pins in a low squat position. The low bar because it's more specific to the start of the deadlift.
Yeah, definitely.
And that really, really works on the leg drive of the start of the deadlift.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm going to add those. I'm definitely going to add those in. And there's a guy named Bud Jeffries. I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah, awesome guy.
Bud is really good at that Anderson squat. He's super strong in that. I think that's
he has the legs of a dwarf, and he's like 3'6", but he's smaller now. But he has perfect leverage, though.
Yeah, perfect leverage for that. Absolutely. Let's talk about the training belt a little bit. Do you have time, or do you need the go right now? I don't want to eat up too much of your time. Okay, with the training belt. Okay, number one, let's start with, when is a training belt actually useful for an athlete or a trainee?
Yeah. Well, if you use it properly, it's pretty much always useful. Meaning that if you use it properly, it will always improve your capacity to lift. And if you use it properly, it's actually not a detriment to strengthening your core. Because people think that the belt is a crutch. Well, the way most people use a belt is a crutch.
Yeah.
But if you use it properly, it can actually strengthen your core. That's the thing. So the first thing you need to understand is you don't need to cinch that belt all the way up, to trying to get the smallest waist possible. That actually creates artificial stability. Basically, the usefulness of the belt is to help you create intra-abdominal pressure.
Right.
Intra-abdominal pressure will stabilize the spine and will allow, and remember what I said earlier, if the body feels more stable, it will allow you to use more of your strength potential, right? So the belt will do that either voluntarily or artificially. Artificially would be you're cinching it super hard and you're not trying to contract anything. The belt actually does the increase in intra-abdominal pressure for you, okay? So that will be a crutch, and it will diminish your skill, your capacity to create that intra-abdominal pressure by yourself. Now, the way you should use your belt is you put it just tight enough so that you can feel it, and you are actually using the belt as something to push against with your stomach. So you're filling your belly up with air, then you're boom, pushing against the belt as hard as you can. So that actually creates a barrier. You're pushing against it, but you can't go further, and that will also create an intra-abdominal pressure. But it actually increases abdominal muscle recruitment.
Yeah.
So it increases obliques, transversus abdominis, and rectus abdominis recruitment. There was a study conducted that with belt and without belt, and the abdominal activation, when done properly, was even higher, or at least the same as without a belt. And the cool thing is that at the same weight, those using a belt had a greater activation of the quadriceps. So it makes you stronger. Now, personally, I still don't use it all the time. Me personally, I will start using a belt when I'm 385 or over on the lift. Okay, and why 385? No reason. It's just psychological. Like it gives me a psychological boost knowing that I have some support. Now, some people like me will benefit from a belt more. People with a long torso. Okay, people with a short torso should probably wait as long as possible to wear a belt. Anyway, they don't benefit as much. But people with a very long torso, they will need that support a bit more. I have super strong abs. That's probably like my strongest muscle. I still need a belt to lift my heaviest because the torso is so long. It provides two advantages. First, it allows me to really push against the belt to increase intra-abdominal pressure. The longer your torso, the more of that pressure you need to be stable. But it also gives you enhanced feedback. You know what your torso is doing. So you know, it helps you know, am I leaning forward? Am I losing my tightness? Am I shifting? Because you can feel it. You know if you're moving around. So that's actually a good feedback you can use.
Now with, let's say a deadlift repetition, you brace on the way up on the concentric. On the eccentric, should you brace against the belt or should you not? Or should you just lower under control and then brace again when you take the bar off the floor?
Well, that's a good question. And I think duration of the effort comes into play because if you maintain that maximum intra-abdominal pressure for too long, you could black out and you can have like starting to get woozy and you don't want that. Okay. So it really depends on the
I haven't blacked out, fortunately. I don't push it that hard, but I have been pushing against it on the way down on the negative. But what I find is I just build fatigue a lot faster.
Yeah.
It's not as efficient.
And again, as long as you maintain proper position, you don't need to. The goal of the belt is provide extra stability for the spine when you need it. Since you're stronger eccentrically, you probably don't need as much of a boost. Now, if you're lifting a maximum weight, like you have, like let's say it's your max effort that you have like 625 on the bar, you might want to lower it back down with, if you're doing only one rep, it's a test. I would maintain it just to be sure you don't get injured. But other than that, just controlling the movement would be more than enough.
Yeah, I was doing 8 reps with the weight yesterday, and I noticed that the weight didn't even feel that heavy, but I started fatiguing really fast. Now, the other part is I'm wearing a mask. We all have to wear masks in the gym now, so that doesn't help either. But I think it was more just that's when you're doing a repetition set, you don't want anything that's inefficient. You don't want anything that's going to cause you to fatigue more. So if you don't need to brace hard,
if you don't need it, exactly,
then you want to save it for when you do need it.
And also, you need to understand one thing, right? There's a residual contraction that will be maintained. For example, if during the concentric, you're pushing hard, contracting, and then if you stop focusing on pushing as hard as possible, it's not like your stomach goes to mush. It's still contracting. You're still maintaining part of that contraction. For example, if I'm doing a lat pull down and I'm squeezing my lats at the bottom to really feel that contraction, and I'm going up, even if I'm not focusing on squeezing again, I still have a better mind-muscle connection or better contraction of your lats. So it does the fact that you are contracting a muscle as hard as you can for a certain part of the range of motion, it will maintain part of that contraction during the rest of the reps.
Yeah. And I think it's a good move in general because people get really sloppy because if you're always trying to lift more, you start compromising technique. I remember Charles Poliquin said he wouldn't count reps once the technique started going south. So if someone did 8 reps on the military press and those reps 1 through 8 look great, but reps 9 and 10, there's excessive back bend. It's it's not clean going all the way to the top. You wouldn't even count those. Now
I'm exactly the same way.
The athlete is encouraged not to even bother doing that next time because they're not going to be counted. I think that's
exactly the same way.
That's one reason why I like filming my workouts, because it gives me an idea of how it looked. Because sometimes you do it and you think, oh man, that felt great. And then you look at it and you go, wow, that looks terrible. And sometimes the opposite. Sometimes it didn't feel right, but you look at it, you go, okay, that looks pretty good. But it gives you some feedback. It gives you an idea of what you're doing right or wrong and what you can improve upon.
You absolutely need to use video if you're serious about like improving your big lifts.
Yeah.
Your body. I remember they had Albert Pujols on a TV show, like great baseball player.
Yeah, right.
They asked him to explain how he swings the bat. And what he was describing was the exact opposite of what they were showing in a slow motion swing that was taking in the game. So sometimes you are doing, what you're doing is completely different than what's actually going on in reality.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you feel, sometimes you're doing it and you think it's going to look a certain way. Like, oh, that felt great. I bet it looks like this. And then you look at it, you go, wow, it didn't look like that at all. And sometimes the opposite. So just, I think that's what's really useful. That's one of the usages I like to take advantage of for Instagram, because it allows me to put up some content, but also for myself, I can scroll through my history and just look at things. Sometimes you haven't done a move in a while either, and it feels awkward. You go, what am I doing wrong? And then you scroll through your feed, you look at the last time you did it effectively, you go, okay, that's what I need to do.
And that also shows the usefulness of trolls. Hear me out. Like trolls or haters who just like to point out every minutia of a flaw you might have, just because, dude, I was able to one up the expert. You know what? Sometimes it's useful. I remember I posted a squat workout, the last workout of my phase of 10 reps. And I did that at like 5 a.m. in the morning, and because of my second kid, and I just needed to get it done with sets of 10, super lightweight. So I only had like 315 on the bar, and I probably did those 10 reps in like 4.5 seconds, like boom, 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 boom. Like super, it did look like a warm up, but I had a small butt wink at the bottom. And the guy posted, well, do you always butt wink like that? I thought it was like bad. And so, you know what? I did like not... I don't do that normally, but don't do that again, because that's shit. And I realized, well, if I don't focus on technique, even me with my years of lifting experience, you know what, I can still do shitty lifting. And what I commented is that he said, well, I feel bad for commenting on a lift by someone who's much stronger than I am. I said, dude, shitty lifting is shitty lifting regardless of who does it. I mean, if I do shitty lifting, it's still shitty. Just because it's Christian Thibaudeau doesn't mean it's not shitty. So I want someone to point that out, because when you are at a certain level, the only people who will actually comment are the haters. That's because true. Those who respect you say, well, he's my master, I can't like comment on that, or hey, I'm not worthy or whatever. So you need those haters to point out your flaws, because you need to correct those flaws to get better.
Yeah, there's a guy who's pretty well known in the kettlebell world, and he posted a clip, and it was really sloppy military press technique. And old people that I know who know better were all liking it and saying, great job. And similar to what you're saying, they want to be liked by this person. So they don't want to go. And also, look, if I'm going to give someone constructive advice, I don't need to do it publicly either. I can send that person a private message. But you know what? The thing about unsolicited advice is nobody's receptive to it. Have you ever noticed that? Even sometimes people give me unsolicited advice, but just because of the fact that it was unsolicited, sometimes it's good advice. I'm reading through it. I'm like, okay, it's making some good points. But just for the fact that I didn't ask for it, you're already irritated by it. Anytime I've tried to give someone unsolicited advice at the gym, and these are people who have no clue who I am, it's never received well, especially men. Women, I don't even bother, because I don't want them to think I'm hitting on them. And that's what I think 90% of the time, that is what's happening. That's just some guys. And that irritates women too, because women don't like to be bothered during their workout. So that's the worst approach you can have. But anytime I've given it unsolicited advice to men, they always get defensive. Like, well, I'm doing it for this reason. I'm like, all right. You know what? My bad, my mistake for interrupting your workout and trying to give you advice that you didn't ask for. When people come to me and ask for advice, that's a lot different. They're very receptive to it now. It's positioning versus prospecting, right? In business, prospecting is, you're just making phone calls, you're calling people up out of the blue, you're bothering them, you're passing out business cards all day long. That's prospecting. It's not effective at all. Positioning is you put out great content like what you do, and people are drawn to you. They look at your free content, such as the hundreds of articles you've written on T Nation and your website, and then that makes them more amenable to actually spend money with you because you've already demonstrated value without having to waste any of your time. You wrote the article, it's up there. People probably read articles that you wrote 10 years ago still. And you probably still get business from that. So it's like having employees working for you while you're busy dealing with your life. You're working out, you're hanging out with your wife, you're taking care of your kids, you're walking your dogs. Meanwhile, all that content is working for you.
Correct. Absolutely. I've long stopped giving unsolicited advice myself. Plus, I don't really go to commercial gyms anymore, but then I noticed the exact same thing. It never works.
Yeah. It's just, there's no benefit for me either. You know what? I'm not trying to solicit business either. I just see someone doing like a kettlebell swing with really bad technique. And because I was a kettlebell instructor for so long, I'm like, oh, I should go say something. I don't want this person to get injured. But they're not receptive to it. Now, if they see me do a kettlebell swing and they're going, hey, can I ask you a question about it? That's much more effective. That's actually going to be useful. That's positioning versus prospecting. And so whether it's business or your personal life, it has the same results. I remember there was this guy in Las Vegas who was trying to pick up women, and he was using a very ineffective strategy. So he's at the bar, and every time a woman walked by, he would just yell out some one-liner at her, right? And then I looked over at him, like, what are you doing? And he goes like, hey, man, it's a numbers game. I'm like, no, it's not a numbers game because it's a numbers game as in you're going to have to go to your ATM to get cash because those are the only numbers that are going to work in your favor. You're just prospecting. You're just yelling out stuff at random women. Now, if you picked one woman and decided to go to her and have a good conversation and ask her questions and show some interest, I'm not saying you're going to have a 90% success rate, but you're going to have a way higher success rate than just blurting out stuff at every single woman that's walking by.
Makes no sense.
Yeah, none whatsoever. Well, hey, man, this was awesome. Thanks a lot for the great information. And you're doing online personalized program design still, right?
Not that well, still a little bit. It's mostly just selling programs and mostly education. Okay. I do have online coaching, but I don't take clients at the moment because I personally, but I will eventually build like more automatized and semi-autonomous online coaching service that will allow me to train multiple people. But the way I do it right now is that I individually design every single training cycle. My clients send me videos daily. I text them every day. I analyze their lifting every day. So I can't do more than 5 like that. So,
that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So if people want more information on your programs and services, where should they go?
Thibaudeau.com, which is my website. Also, Thibaudeau on Instagram, Christian Thibaudeau at Thibaudeau, so they can find me there. I still have articles on T Nation. Obviously, I have. Well, if you just want to read articles, I mean, you could go on T Nation and read my articles, and it would probably take you 20 years to read them all. It was 600.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Ooh, it was hundreds. Do you still write for T Nation, or have you pulled?
Yeah. So once in a while, like I have taken over the Charles's old Question of Strength column.
Oh, yeah, right. That's great.
Yeah. Sometimes you also do a collaboration between various coaches, and I have a forum there still, so I do interact with people over there.
Good. Excellent. Well, hey, man, thanks again. Let me just stop recording. Make sure we don't lose this.